Hello. So I decided to do a Q&A video because I kinda just felt like it. My channel is entering something of a new era where I have a lot more freedom overall, and while that can be a bit daunting with so many potential options and a lack of focused direction for now, my solution is to simply follow my heart and go with what speaks to me. Apparently right now a Q&A video is what speaks to me, so we're doing that. If you have any questions that aren't answered here, please leave them in the comments, because I'm probably not going to make a habit of making these, so I can just answer those directly. Anyway, first question. Next question. Would you consider playing Monster Hunter World or Wilds? Fun fact, World is actually my favourite Monster Hunter. I'm still just a fledgling when it comes to the series, but World was the first and only title I sank a lot of time into, and even then it's probably fair to say I enjoyed the game casually. That said, I am really liking how Wilds is shaping up, and I do have every intention of playing it once it's out. I might even stream it over on my Twitch channel that I have, that you should follow me on if you want to, because that would be cool, I think. Do you love Marmite? And if you don't, why is your bloodline weak? I'm sorry, I thought the tagline was love it or hate it, not just love it. But if eating that shit is necessary to ensure my bloodline isn't weak, then I still won't, because joke's on you, I'm used to being submissive. There's more to this one. What games besides Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen are your comfort food? Some of you already know where I'm going with this, but Final Fantasy IX is my favourite mainline entry, and playing it for the first time is a very cherished childhood memory of mine. The game just makes me very happy overall. I also feel very at home in most of the DMC games, 3 and onward especially. This also applies to Revengeance, and I am basically guaranteed to be having fun if I'm playing Soul Calibur. The Bungie-era Halo games are also very precious to me, and I have countless fond memories of them. Turns out I have a lot of comfort food games. There's definitely more, but I'll leave it at that for now. What do you main in Final Fantasy XIV? Viper, now and forever, baby. Something that always bugged me about Ninja ever since it first released is how disconnected it feels from the Rogue questline preceding it. I know this is basically how it works in Final Fantasy I, and frankly, I don't give a fraction of a damn. Rogue works better as a setup for Thief, and I wanted some sort of Thief class as the other scouting class. Now after all this time, we got Viper, and it's perfect because it's just Final Fantasy IX the class, which I am all for because that's my favourite one, and Zidane is my boy. When they started teasing the new poster boy class for Dawntrail and everyone was speculating what the weapon could be, I was the only one in my entire circle to lock in on Twinblade. And I was right, and it was fucking beautiful! It also has a devil trigger. I know it's supposed to evoke trance, but it also evokes DMC, and I love it so much. There's more to this, too. What server do you play on? Phantom, on the Chaos Data Center. What FC are you in? Phantom Thieves. It's one of those laid-back FCs that's just a private group of friends, really. Favorite color? This one. What do you do outside of gaming and YouTube? I really enjoy any opportunity to get to play D&D or other tabletop RPGs like Pathfinder. I'm really excited to try Daggerheart and the Final Fantasy XIV TTRPG. They really need to shorten that acronym. This one's more of a passing hobby, but on a similar note, I really enjoy Choose Your Own Adventure books. Warlock of Firetop Mountain is my shit. If you have any interest in these, the series that Warlock of Firetop Mountain is from is called Fighting Fantasy. And they actually have a collection of virtual approximations of a number of the books in their series that you can get on Steam via a game called Fighting Fantasy Classics. The program itself is free, but each book costs money, but they're really cheap, so if you want to check them out, then it won't cost you much. Lastly, I am something of an aspiring writer. I say aspiring because, like many of us creative types, I just can't seem to actually finish writing anything. Like, I can literally plan a story from start to finish, but when it comes to actually writing it, I always really struggle with the opening chapter specifically because I feel it's such a crucial part of a story, so I want to do it right, and I end up in this perfectionist limbo. Then I sort of overplan, typing down a million ideas a minute, and eventually it all becomes a bit hard to keep track of, but I do have consistent stories I want to work on, I don't. What was your first pet's name? I had a hamster named Lucy when I was a kid, but I wasn't actually old enough to take care of her on my own. What is your mother's maiden name? Wouldn't you like to know, Weather Boy? My credit card number is this. That's binary for fuck you. What was your favourite Dragon's Dogma guide to make? This is a tough one. I'd say I actually enjoyed making all of my Dark Arisen guides because even though they were a lot of work, that was offset by my experience with the game making a lot of it go pretty smoothly, I'd say. But if I had to pick one, I think it would have to be Assassin. The fact that it's my favourite vocation meant I already knew the class like the back of my hand, so putting the guide together was pretty seamless. But along with that, I actually feel like I'd sort of mastered the format of these guides by that point. Like, maybe this is egocentric to say, but I genuinely feel like the humour of the guide just doesn't skip a beat. It feels like the second the video starts, it just hits the ground running and doesn't let up until it's over. I think it's one of the more fun guides because of this factor, and that's sort of a balance I wanted to maintain throughout all of my guides. Managing to be sincerely informative while keeping up a laid-back, fun, and hopefully humorous presentation. And I think for me, just behind Assassin is actually my fighter guide, because despite it being the first one I made, I feel like it came out of the gate pretty damn strong. Also, if you enjoyed the guides, please go watch my Fists Only and 1 HP runs if you haven't, because they typically have a lot of the same sort of humour. I promise you'll like them, and if you don't, then I guess I'm a liar. Thoughts on Final Fantasy VII Remakes, Hi-Fi Rush, and God Hand. So funnily enough, I have actually made a video on Hi-Fi Rush before, and I'd recommend checking that out since the video itself is basically comprised of my thoughts on the game. I've never actually had the chance to play God Hand, but from what I've seen, it looks awesome. The combo system being so in-depth is just wild. Like, they didn't need to go that hard. The FF7 remakes are very near and dear to my heart. Playing both Remake and Rebirth count as two of the more memorable experiences I've had with games in recent memory. I love the combat, I love the story, I even just love the voices. Mostly. If I had to choose my least favourite aspect, it would definitely be the whole Whispers subplot turning it into a weird multiverse affair, because from the jump this feels very forced. In my opinion, FF7 Remake is a perfect game right up until the final battle where things get extremely weird, and this also applies to Rebirth. The former ruins the consistency of its own attention to detail in being a faithful remake, and the latter entry ruins arguably the most pivotal moment in the original story. This is kind of less of a problem for players like me who already know that original story, but I don't think it's fair for new players being exposed to it for the first time, because I can't help but feel like they're being shortchanged in that specific aspect, and even as an existing fan, it feels distinctly unnecessary. That said, probably my favourite part of the games is how much they flesh out both the characters and the setting. Like, the games so often just go above and beyond with delivering on familiar story beats, and then doubling down to expand them in ways that make sense and really add flavour to the world. They're also just very fun games throughout. Like, I was not expecting stuff like Rufus's welcoming ceremony to become one of my favourite set pieces in the game, and it's one of many. War Market was also legendary. In basically every way, Rebirth was just big remake for me. It did all the same stuff right and made the same mistakes. Both would be perfect games if it wasn't for their respective final chapters, but the insane commitment to fleshing out the setting, characters, and going all out on fun still makes them 9 out of 10 games for me. If you could make one change to Dragon's Dogma 2, what would it be? I would make it a better game. Just one change is difficult, but I think if I had to pick one element to change, it would be this. I would make it so that the game is a true sequel or prequel to the original game. A lot of the story's issues stemmed from the fact that it was basically a worse retelling of the beats of the original game, right? So this would make it entirely its own interesting tale, and I think if it had gone this route, some of us might have been able to look past the gameplay imperfections out of sheer enjoyment of the story. It's also my hope that this would result in sort of a domino effect that would change or outright remove elements I didn't enjoy, like camping and so on. But yeah, like, as is, it's very easy to look at Dragon's Dogma 2 and ask, why was this necessary? So I think providing more of a justification for it with an entirely distinct story that broadens the narrative and fleshes out the lore would at least give it more character and make its entire existence a bit more valid. Will you play Oblivion and make videos of it, and if so, what build will you make? Oblivion is my favourite Elder Scrolls game, and I basically never like to rule anything out. Maybe I'll stream it one day, but as of right now, I probably don't have a whole lot of call to make videos on it. It's an old game that's already been covered to death in terms of guides, and I don't tend to generate much attention when I make videos that are just me playing a game. I wouldn't say it's a driving factor, but I've still gotta keep the well-being of my channel in mind, you know? As for builds, let's be honest, we always circle back around to Stealth Archer, don't we? What led you to discover Dragon's Dogma? So some of you know already, but I'm a big DMC boy. That was my entry point into Capcom games, and over time I started branching out into more of their titles since they started popping up on my radar more often after that point. Shoutouts to Dead Rising and Lost Planet. But here's a fun fact. When I first watched the trailer for Dragon's Dogma, I didn't like it. I thought Into Free didn't fit the tone of the game. I saw it as goofy and weird. And yes, I did realize my mistake soon enough. I swiftly came to fall in love with Into Free and of course the game itself, but I'm getting ahead of myself. On a whim, I decided to try out a free demo of the game, one that pitted you against a griffin. The demo allowed you to fully customize your Arisen and Pawn, and immediately that started winning me over with how vast the options were. But during the fight itself, my pawn proceeded to use Ladder Blade to fling me up onto the griffin as it soared overhead, and it was this exact moment that sealed the deal for me. This kind of dynamic detail that made the combat shine, made it feel liberating as hell. Which, side note, is something Lost Planet also did really well. Can we please bring that back? So yeah, the demo completely sold me on the game, and I'm very glad that it did. Also, favourite Dragon's Dogma job and why? And to make it not entirely Dragon's Dogma, what's your favourite job in the Final Fantasy series? So I already mentioned in this exact video that Assassin is my favourite vocation, and for a number of reasons. The versatility is real nice, and I enjoy the majority of skills it has available, along with the absolute shitfuck damage it dishes out regardless of weapon choice. As for my favourite Final Fantasy job, to be specific, Thief is my favourite when it's given love. Thieves in Final Fantasy are often completely dog shit and provide little outside of the minor utility of saving you some cash. Zidane in Final Fantasy IX is an example of a thief done well because yes, he does have the ability to steal items, but on top of that, he can and does deliver shitloads of damage. Outside of that though, I really like Dark Knights, Paladins, and Dragoons are literally always a guaranteed W. All of the mages are classics, Blue Mage is super cool and I wish it was utilized more. If you can make a sequel to one game, what would you choose? As much as I instinctively want to say Final Fantasy IX, it doesn't need one. On the other hand, while I think it's a perfectly complete game that tells a good self-contained story, I think Metal Gear Rising still has so much to offer. Like, I know it's probably never gonna happen, but I am just so thirsty for another installment there, dude. And hey, if they ever need any ideas, I did make that speculative sequels video, just saying. If they released new content or DLC for Dragon's Dogma 2, would you check it out or pass? I mean, I'd probably take a look, right? I typically feel these things deserve a fair shot, but like I said in my previous video, I just think the foundations of the core game are not at all there. I think it should say, fuck's sake. Why am I so eepy? I think it should say a lot that I was still obsessively playing vanilla Dragon's Dogma before Dark Arisen arrived, and absolutely Dark Arisen is just an improvement in every aspect, but the reason it lands is because the framework of a great game is already there. People act like Dark Arisen was a complete overhaul, but it wasn't. It was an expansion with some quality of life changes. I adore Bitter Black Isle, but I'd say the majority of my time is still actually spent in the main game itself. And I think the folks who just grind out Bitter Black specifically kind of lose sight of the inherent value the original game had. Anyway, sorry, I rambled a bit, but yeah, I'd give DLC for Dragon's Dogma 2 a whirl, but I don't believe anything short of an actual overhaul can salvage it at this point. Who would win, Virgil or Sephiroth? Virgil, every time! Every time! I will not elaborate! Oh, this last one is from Thief of Crystals, and it's addressed to you, the viewer. It says, "Why aren't you subscribed to my Patreon?" Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to subscribe, drop a like, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. You can join my Discord for updates and to hang out with the lovely members of the Thieves Guild. I can also be followed on Twitter, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can do so on Patreon, or simply donate directly via PayPal. Links can be found in the description below. Have a great day. I'll catch you next time.